I mean, you're on. You're going to start using sound. What? Are you going to start using sound?
No, I'm not.
I wish I could use sound. Wait, what are you writing?
Sorry.
No, it's all good. All right, guys, we go ahead and get started on today's SLAB talk, which is getting started with development. Now, just to let you guys know off the bat that I want to call this more of an intro to getting started with development. So it's an intro, more so just because there's so much to getting started with development. There's so many different aspects to it. Like, for example, which IDE you want to use. You know, you want to get started with a terminal also, and like look at this frameworks, all this stuff. So there's so much to it. This is more so like how to get into getting into that. How to get into getting into like, you know, starting with development more so. So my first slide that actually I was going to create was what is development, but then I realized, like, you know, I shouldn't really have to explain that, especially if you're interested in it. You should kind of know what development is in a way. But you know, if you need to know what development is, I would Google it, because there's a lot to explain behind that. But why? Why development? First question you want to ask yourself is why? Why do you want to get into development? So the problem with development nowadays, in some ways, is that a lot of developers will hop on because they know it makes good money. It's a lot of hard work in the beginning, but then once you hop on the track, you know, they think you're good to go. Like, you know development is something you only have to do inside of work for the most part, and you can make some good money off of it. And I think that's a problem. I mean, you can go about it that way. You can go in, hop on, if you get a job in development and learn it, and then, you know, get by with that. But I don't think you're developing for the right reason in that sense. The reason why you should do development is because you love it. You love the art. You love, you know, writing code. You like creating applications and things like that, and you get a real rush out of it. And you should definitely want to like reach that feeling and reach that goal when you do start to get in development. The best way to get started is to set a goal or task that you want to accomplish. Say, for example, you want to make a website, or you want to make an app that you can use to write a blog or something like that. Then you know, that's a good place to start to kind of give yourself an idea. Don't just say I want to develop and then hop into it without any sort of goals or anything. Then you'll get lost. If you don't have like a task or anything like that, you'll just be like, I don't know what to do next. So definitely get a goal to start off with. Also, don't try and tackle everything at once. That's a problem, because when you first start to get into development, you realize there's so many aspects to it. There's there's first of all the language you want to learn, and there's different, you know, like other resources you can use, like for example frameworks and things like that. And then you want to use like SQL, and then like everything just starts to like pile on, and it might seem like a lot. So definitely take it slow. Don't try and tackle everything at once. Pick a language that interests you. This one's also key. One thing that I learned when first starting game development was I tried like 6 different languages. I started with Python. Actually, I started with Java, and then I went to Python, and then I learned in PHP a little bit. I even tried Go here, and I just started with some JavaScript. And then at one point, more recently, I even touched up upon some of what iOS uses. So definitely first figure out what language you want to learn and stick with that. And a good language to start with is one that maybe you can get some review on. So if you know some other developers who develop a specific language and you want to get some review on that, you might want to pick a language that you can that'll help you there. So another step is to research and explore. First of all, you want to pick a resource. There's books, sites, people that you can use. Books are a really great resource. The only problem with books that I realize is that some of them are outdated. Some of them have older versions of PHP, for example, or older versions of the language that you're trying to learn about, which isn't bad. I mean, it's good to kind of learn what the language used to consist of in a way, so that you can go and research and figure out what the new language has in it. But you know, definitely first pick some resources there. And you can use multiple resources. For example, I started out with sites and doing some research there, and then I picked up a PHP book. And actually what really helped me was the PHP book. Even though it was like PHP like 5.4 or something older, it still really helped me get the fundamentals down, on top of doing like the online tutorials and whatnot. Don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. This is a huge thing. Because the problem is once you start getting development, when you get stuck on something, it can get really frustrating. You can get really discouraged. So definitely. Sorry, it's all good. So definitely just set your mind to it and keep going with it. And sometimes it can be something really small. I read an article the other day about a guy who got really discouraged, and all he was missing was a semicolon. And that's why his code was not compiling. So definitely, make sure, don't get discouraged. Google is most certainly your friend. If you do ever have any questions or you're ever stuck on something or you're getting a weird error in the terminal after trying to compile your code or anything like that, Google it. Google will definitely give you some answers to that. And it's not bad. You're not stupid if you Google. I know like some of the smartest developers I know, they Google a lot of the things that they have questions about. Read articles and look into things that interest you. So again, this goes back to the main idea of don't get into development, just for like the money or just because like you think it might be a good career path for you. I mean, it could be a good career path for you, and you might really be interested in it. But make sure like you're doing it for the right reasons. Make sure you want to you have a passion in it, because that's what really counts. So read articles onto it. Look into different look at movers of the language. Look into how people are using language. Good styling, things like that. So if you're really interested, you'll take the time to research this stuff. You'll take the time to learn the language and kind of invest more so into the language. So this next section is what I've tried, and I threw a little IT crowd quiz in there, which I love. I love that show. All right, so one thing I do want to mention actually really quick is that I'm not trying to sell you on any of these, by the way. It may sound like I'm kind of selling some of these, but more so I'm going over what I've tried, what I've found beneficial, what worked for me, because different things will work with different people. But for the most part, you can try out each one of these different resources. There we go. So Codecademy is one of the first things I've tried. Cool thing about this one is you can hop right to the action. As you can see right there, it says start coding in seconds. It's also free, which is really nice. It's hard to find some good free programming starters or tutorials and whatnot. It has tons of things in there: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, SQL, Rails, Angular, and tons of other ones on there. They're adding more all the time. So the thing about this one, though, I found is it's more of a nice refresher than anything. If you really want to get down the fundamentals and learn the core of the language, I wouldn't say Codecademy is the best. I mean, it's good because it'll get you into the action. But the problem I found with Codecademy is once you start to learn, for example, PHP in it, it starts to fill in a lot for you. You should be repetitively creating classes. You should be repetitively creating functions. But after you create your first function, it automatically wrote in the function for you. So that was one thing the problem I found is it wasn't really hardwiring it into my head. And that was one thing I found with Codecademy. But if you need a nice refresher on any one of these languages, hop on Codecademy. You can start coding in a language in seconds and look at tutorials. So if you haven't written, for example, JavaScript in a year and months or whatever, and you want to get a refresher, perfect for that. It's free. Lynda was another one that I tried. There's tons and tons of awesome videos on there. It was $25 a month, a little more expensive. It was missing some important cornerstones for beginners. So they do have introductory videos, but a lot of them flew through or things like loops and if statements and if and else statements, things like that. It just flew through some of those, and I was like, this is not good for introduction versus this is more just a refresher also. And also it was slightly outdated also. It was using older versions of the languages that they were giving videos on. So I would recommend this one. edx.com. This one's pretty cool. It's also slightly limited in the amount of videos it has, but they're amazing classes. It's super professional. There's actual teachers. The classes have start and end dates, and you can actually get reviewed by a teacher. So it's free unless you want to get a certificate on it, you can pay for it. There's classes from MIT, Harvard, Berkeley, and University of Texas on here. So let me check that one out. There was a really cool one I was actually looking at today. That was a class on functional programming. And it had a little bit of Haskell in it too, which was pretty awesome. And it was a free class, a free course, and it told you the fundamentals of that. So if you want to get into a different language, and the cool thing about this whole entire talk actually is that it's not just focused on people who are just getting into development, but it's also people who want to learn a different language. So you can definitely concentrate on one language, go through that and finish your career with that. But I feel like nowadays a lot of people are looking to hire developers that not exactly full stack, but more stack, I call it. So, more than just one language, because that can really help you out. If you can help in different areas and fields, and if you can draw those connections to different languages, it can be really, really helpful. So definitely, if you want to learn a different language, this is a cool place to start. EDX is really awesome. Treehouse, this is my personal favorite. Really easy, tons of well-taught lessons. They really know how to teach on this website. They're really good at putting visuals in there. And the cool thing is this site will also give you quizzes. It'll give you homework to do and things like that. So this is what I would say helped me learn the most. The book that I got for PHP and Treehouse really got me learning PHP like the best. There's tons of other languages on here though, not just PHP. There's also like HTML and tons of other ones. So definitely, if you want to learn, I would recommend Treehouse. It is the most expensive actually, but I can see why because it's actually really, really well done. Each one of the classes is well taught. There's also a workspace in the browser, so you don't have to do any local setup. So you don't have to set up IDE or anything, or your terminal or anything like that. There's forums and teacher help, and it's my personal favorite. And then, of course, for the PHP nerds, there's Laracast, which there's a great teacher. Paul paid for it, so it's free for us, at least. Beginner, intermediate, and advanced lessons. So if you're just hopping on, this is a good place to start. Even for new developers, it's not a bad place to start. I would say, though, you want to take at least a fundamentals course before getting into Laracast, because he does go over some advanced topics, even just in the beginner courses. So you can't exactly just hop in there from the get-go. You want to take a fundamentals course first, and it's Laravel focused, which is it's good for the most part. So awesome. So now here's some recommended steps that I would take when getting into development. First step is find an objective. Mine was, a great recommendation is creating your own website, because that's a good place to start. You get some really nice fundamentals down, especially if you're going to write an HTML, some CSS in there. I wrote my entire first website from scratch. Well, besides I had the normalized CSS. Besides that, I wrote the rest of my entire website from scratch. Each page, the headers, the footers. You learn so much in doing that. You can kind of get a nice foundation of what programming is about. Kind of. You get a nice idea of sort of what programming is about. There's no classes or anything like that, so it's a little bit different. But it kind of gives you an idea. It'll kind of let you know if you really want to get into this or not. So HTML, CSS is a really good place to start. It's really easy to use and really easy to learn about. So definitely recommendation, start by creating your own website. Another recommendation is if one resource isn't working out for you, try another. If watching videos and these tutorials is not getting through to you, you don't feel like you're learning much, then, go ahead and try reading a book. Go find a book on Amazon, go to the library, find an ebook online, and start learning the language that way. Because sometimes watching videos over and over again, these repetitive videos and trying to follow along may not be your thing. Recommendation 3, documentation is big before anything else. You always want to look at documentation. You can learn about the concepts, the syntax, the types of the language that you're trying to learn, or even framework, or anything like that. You want to look at the documentation for sure. You can learn about some of for example, for the PHP documentation, you can learn about some of the predefined constants like mathematical functions, and one of them is MPy will give you pi. So how would you have known that if you didn't actually look at the documentation? So definitely look in the documentation because there's so much that's already there for you to use. You don't have to you wouldn't have to write up pi yourself. There's already a constant there waiting for you to use. So always look at documentation before hopping in. And in your free time, you can read up on the documentation. You're not actually programming something. Read the documentation and learn something new. Probably a new constant that you can use. Last couple steps. 4, stick with it. It's easy to get discouraged when things just don't seem to make sense. Take a break or ask a friend, but please don't bug that friend too much, though. So when you start to program, you will realize that it's not easy, especially if you're learning more advanced language. You'll realize that it's not easy, and that it is easy to get discouraged because if you're working on something for a couple hours and it is not going to be working, it will frustrate you. And I've been in that place. I've trying to create a test for something. I'll spend an hour and I'm just missing something really small, I could be missing a semicolon or something. So definitely don't get discouraged. And if you are getting frustrated, take a break. You can also ask a friend. Remember though, in terms of asking friends, try not to bug them too much. You want to make sure you try and attempt to fix your issue first. Use Google, use your other resources, and then you can go to that friend for help. So definitely keep going. Other than that, the hard way, because I do tend to bug a lot of my developer friends about my issues. So number 5, go outside the tutorials and make something for yourself. Currently, to help myself learn Laravel, I'm rewriting my entire website Laravel. Instead of using just HTML and CSS, I'm actually going to use PHP, Laravel as a backend, and that's how I'm actually learning Laravel also. So instead of just watching the tutorials, which I could do, I'm actually just going to rewrite my entire site and use Laravel, which is actually going really great. I'm learning a ton of awesome stuff. I just learned what a blade was, which I had no idea what a blade was before. So we're doing some pretty awesome stuff there. So try applying, whatever you're learning development to a real world situation or to your situation, because you can follow along tutorials. That's what I did in the beginning, but it never really stuck. Like most examples that you're going to find tutorials are really like rare cases that you'll never use. They're kind of ridiculous too, if you think about it. So, try and apply whatever you're learning tutorials to real life situations. Final step, look for online quizzes once you begin to get the hang of things. So, once you feel like you're getting slightly more comfortable and you want to kind of test yourself, look for a quiz, look for a way to test your knowledge in that language. I know for, Python, for example, when I was learning Python, I just looked up, tests for Python or quizzes for Python. I was able to find lists upon lists of like small little tasks to do, like, try and loop through something and whatnot. So definitely try and, quiz and test yourself too, to make sure it really sticks. All right, and then to finish off my presentation, I have a little 4-minute clip. How this girl named Audrey Lim, she was actually a lawyer, and within 5 weeks, she actually developed her first program, and it's actually a really, really cool story. So I took 2 little slices from her video, the beginning and then a little bit later in the video. But if you watch the whole thing, it's like 30 minutes long. It's on YouTube. You can just type in Audrey Lim talk. And it's really, really interesting. It's a really, really cool story. All right, give me 1 second.